Podcasts, the final frontier. These are the voyages of the podcast.
There are 4 lights!
Its 5-year mission to explore strange, familiar worlds, to seek out new listeners and new civilizations, to boldly go where most nerds have gone before. Join Matt and Shirley on their 5-year mission with a different guest each week as they talk about an episode of Star Trek, from the original series through Enterprise. They'll cover every episode, eventually.
Hi, everybody, and welcome back to There Are 4 Lights. I'm here with Shirley.
Hello.
She's back from the dead.
Yes, I am back from the dead.
She missed our last couple episodes with a terrible sickness.
Bronchial flu, cold, sinusitis, flu thing.
Yeah, it was bad. It was bad. And so she dodged out so she didn't cough through all the episodes.
Yeah.
But this week we have a special guest. Well, every week we have a special guest. So this one I like to think of as especially special because we have... Yes, go ahead.
It's Torque.
I get that a lot.
No.
I really do.
It's it's Matthew Peterson who plays Torque in a podcast.
I prefer to think of it as inhabiting the role of Torque, much as the writers of Flash comics in the 1950s were merely channeling the adventures of Earth 1 and Earth 2. I am speaking for Torque, who may or may not technically exist in another dimension or something. That's my James Lipton, by the way, which is bad because James Lipton isn't English. So I got that going for me, which is nice.
So now I'm going to embarrass Shirley on the podcast and tell you
why
that
didn't you embarrass me before the podcast?
When we went to Nerdtacular 2013, because all of our fans need to hear this, we went up to the table where they were selling all of the Critical Hit shirts, and she said, "Where's Torque?" and may have pushed a little child out of the way to get to it.
I did not push that child. I was just looking over its shoulder.
Yeah, but she loves that shirt, and honestly, I love that shirt too. That image of Torque is not quite what I had in my head, but it is phenomenal.
It's an amazing image, and Thomas Perkins, who drew that, is a hugely talented guy. And I so nerded out with that. I'll tell you a secret. It's not exactly what was in my head until he drew that, and now it is. That's how cool it was.
You're like, I embody this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Definitely, yeah. So tell us, Matthew, about one or two or all of the podcasts you're on.
Well, I am apparently the unofficial poster child. No, that's actually Steven. Of MajorSpoilers.com, which means Critical Hit, of course, we do, which are live play Dungeons & Dragons podcasts. We do the Major Spoilers podcast, which is sort of general comics and pop culture. I do Dueling Review and Flashback with Steven about comics and the Flash TV show. We do Top 5, where we talk about 5 things in a row. Zach on Film, where we talk about film. There's a ton of shows at MajorSpoilers.com. You should totally check them out. Some of them don't feature me. Don't hold that against them.
You know what? I got into podcasting listening to Scott Kurtz and the Penny Arcade guys playing D&D, and literally the second podcast I ever listened to was Critical Hit. Oh. And I never stopped. And then I went back and listened to every Major Spoilers that was available that didn't have some sort of glitch on iTunes.
Which is good. I don't know if we have any glitches, but...
Yeah, there were a couple. There was the Lost Show that was interesting.
I loved the Lost Show. The thing about the Lost Show is it was a heartbreaker for us because we were all in this really weird, scary, kind of eerie sort of thing, and then all of a sudden the show disappeared, and we swore that the ghosts that we were talking about were keeping it from ever seeing air.
Oh, it's creepy. Like they're like deep into the creepy, and you can feel that creep like creeping up on your back and like tingly, and then dead stop.
Dead stop, because the ghost got tired of hearing us taking its name. That's what happened.
Yeah. So
it's like the end of Ghostwatch. If you've ever seen, it's not that creepy. The end of Ghostwatch is uber creepy. Check it out.
It's like seriously creepy.
Right on. So we're big fans over here of everything going on over at Major Spoilers.
Cool.
I can't suggest that.
I think you're the bigger fan than I.
Well, I think if you were into comic books like I was, but you like Top 5 and Top 5. I'm trying to think what else.
Anything you bring to my ear, I usually like.
Yeah.
But
yeah,
you should listen to Top 5 Worst Nightmares. That's the show where I basically am psychologically exposed to the universe, which is a fun one.
Wow.
Yeah, if you break that all down, you'll know everything you need to know about me from my 5 worst nightmares.
All right. It's on. right after this.
Well, this week we're here to talk about the original series, Episode 6, according to Netflix, The Enemy Within.
It's Episode 5, Netflix. And I will find you, and I will cut you.
Matthew is a strict adherence to a specific order and a specific continuity.
The year was 1966. No, sorry.
But this is a very interesting episode. We get to see some growth, or at least potential for growth, in Captain Kirk and learn more about him. I think this is a good foothold for him to explain kind of who the character is.
He felt off to me.
Well, there was two of them, and they were weird. Both of them were weird.
And this is an episode that actually gives some growth to the whole concept of Star Trek and really kind of shows what they were trying to do above and beyond just, funny punch-ups in space. Mm-hmm. And which I'm sure we'll get to in a moment.
Oh, well, yeah, all kinds of stuff. So, Shirley, do you want to walk us through the plot, or do you want me to?
You can go ahead.
Okay, so they're on planet Alpha 17,
Stardate 1672.1. The Federation Starship Enterprise is in orbit around Alpha 177. Sorry, I had to do it. Go ahead.
No, you're fine. This makes it easier on us. You can just run the rest of the podcast.
Oh, you want? Okay. So what had
the wrong bottle?
So what had happened?
What happened was
they was on this planet. See. Wait. Okay, I'll give you the torque version. They's on this planet, and then their beamy uppy machine was all busticated because the guy was covered in some sort of weird plant dust or something, and then bad things happened. The end.
And there was a unicorn dog.
There was, which was kind of cool.
There was a unicorn dog.
So they're down on a planet. Mm-hmm. One of the crewmen gets hurt. Yes. They beam him up. Some sort of weird dust gets into the transporter.
Magnetic
or dust is what they called it.
Wow, you guys are on top of this. You sure you don't want to do it, sweetie?
No, go ahead.
She'll just interrupt you and tell you when you get it wrong.
I know.
See.
Hey, you know what? She's good with it. She's good at that. You got to stick with what you're good at. So,
my skill set.
When they beam up the captain, they beam him up, and everything seems to be fine. And then everybody leaves the transporter room, and then he beams up again. But it's evil Kirk. You can tell. He had lots of eyeliner, or lots of mascara.
Eyeliner,
and he's covered for some reason in what seems to be Vaseline to make him all shiny and evil looking.
Yeah.
I thought they were using bronzer, but I could have been mistaken.
Yeah, super shiny, which I think would make him look more evil.
Well, we've had a couple of wax shots where they haze everything up to make him look better, which is just weird. And
the Joan Collins shot, yeah.
Yeah, this is my first time through the original series. I've watched everything else except probably a half season of Voyager that I just skipped through because I didn't want to. But this is my first run through the original series, so I've never seen this particular episode before. But I can see where it's already influencing stuff that comes later in the Next Generation.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting when we get there. So Kirk, there's now two Kirks. There's the good, compassionate, loving Kirk, and the evil, ambitious, and lustful Kirk. And the evil Kirk heads straight to sickbay to demand Saurian brandy because that's where you keep it.
Right.
I'm not sure. Is there canon reason for the Saurian brandy being in sickbay?
It's probably illegal.
I know
Bones could have it.
If I could nerd for just a moment, I believe that the Enterprise had mostly synthahol on board. And I think that Bones had a secret hidden supply of Saurian brandy that he kept in his desk.
That makes sense.
It's not secret now. How many people did that?
Like everybody. So evil Kirk gets drunk and then attempts to force himself on poor Yeoman Rand. And she fights him off. And I was a little worried that that was going to go a little bad, and this was going to become very dated very quickly, but they handled it well. They really did, for the time period especially. And she scratches him up, and then there's a manhunt, or a Kirk hunt, on the ship. And the more we see the time go, the more we see the evil Kirk become more aggressive, and the good Kirk become less decisive and more unsure about what he's doing. to the point where we see the triangle between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy again, and both Spock and McCoy are arguing two different sides of the argument, and Kirk doesn't make a decision again.
Yep.
Or for the first time, I guess I should say it for the first time. So that was a pivotal point there where we see the change there. And then they finally capture the evil Kirk with a Vulcan neck pinch. This is not the first time, but definitely effective. And take him to sickbay and try and figure out what's going on. But there's still crew left on the ship, so there has to be there's time sensitive to get them back, but they have to fix the transporter.
Mm-hmm. Crew left on the planet.
Yeah, that's what. No, not what I said.
Sulu's freezing to death on planet Alpha 177.
They're becoming popsicles.
Yes. And Sulu. Sulu's a good sport about it, at least. Trying to keep it happy and go lucky, but clearly they're in danger. So there's a time constraint, and they're trying to fix the transporters, and they finally think they get a fix, so they try it out with this dog, this unicorn dog that they beamed up after the captain, that has split into a happy, everybody hold it dog, and a very aggressive, angry dog. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't work. The dog dies, and no one's sure. McCoy thinks that it could be something else other than just terror of what's going on.
McCoy always goes to the transporter because he's terrified of that thing.
Well, I think that's part of it, but I also think McCoy's trying to be thorough like a doctor would. So I will give him that kind of excuse.
Like a real doctor.
Yeah.
Not a brick.
And then Kirk has to confront his evil self. They fight, and finally they're beamed back together. Mm-hmm. In what feels like a little anticlimactic, but maybe it's just because I know there are 2 other series and like 7 movies that Kirk is in. So this was going to happen. This wasn't the end of Kirk. So, I don't know.
There you go.
That's the basics. What did you think? Does that sound right, Shirley?
Yeah, sounds right.
You're looking at me like I'm crazy.
There's stuff.
The only differentiation that I would make is that the good Kirk, evil Kirk, and you'll see this everywhere, I'm pretty sure it's on, every single internet site, really isn't accurate. What we have is aggressive Kirk and indecisive Kirk. We have a Kirk who is so nice that he can't even make the simplest decision, and we have a Kirk who's so, over-the-top aggressive hate-facery, that's a word I just made up, that he can't actually keep himself from making stupid decisions. And, because, come on, Janice Rand, dude.
Yeah.
You take that back a notch. But most importantly, when you look at this and you break it down, it's not a question of good and evil. And they come to a point in the episode where they say, without that aggressive side, he's not Captain Kirk. He's not a good captain. He's not the person that he should be without those sort of kind of quote-unquote negative emotions and aggressions that he has.
Yep.
Right.
And I think this is an interesting... It's an interesting play, like you were saying, that there's definitely what they're showing what they're trying to do here, and they're trying to show that humanity can be more than what it is, and through this series, and I like that, and I've seen some strides like Uhura has. I just assumed Uhura had almost no role, but I think that was mostly because the movies gave her very little role, and in the 5 previous episodes, the ones she's been part of the crew, and she hasn't done everything that was the most important, but she's been integral. And so clearly there was some work there because of race relations and sexism, and this is just one other step towards that same kind of goal. So, and it's early on. I mean, technically this is the 5th episode, and was early on.
Because I don't think, I don't really know very much about movies in the timeline, but I don't think anybody was tackling, mental mentality at that time. Like, you have to embrace, both sides of, those sides of yourselves, or you're not going to be whole.
If you look at the kind of science fiction that was essentially of the same time period, you can look at Lost in Space, which very quickly turned into kind of a monster of the week, i.e. over-the-top, funny kids show.
Mm-hmm.
And this was an accurate attempt. Accurate is not the word I'm looking for. This was a conscious attempt to try and do a more thoughtful and, more introverting, kind of inward-looking sort of thought process. And people always lay it at Roddenberry's feet, but I think all of the creators were trying to use that science fiction future format to say something about the current state of humanity and the universe.
Mm-hmm. Right. And once you started talking and mentioning it, I feel very much like it's kind of Twilight Zone-ish, because most of Twilight Zone's episodes were, it had some moral at the end of the of the story.
Yeah, I could see that, especially because it does invert our expectations with aggressive Kirk being evil and bad and terrible, and we have to beat him down. And it turns out that without aggressive Kirk, there's no Captain Kirk to make those hard decisions. So I would definitely say that Rod Serling's influence is being felt here.
Yeah. So, I'm sorry, I don't know how to vamp.
No, it's all right.
I don't do vamping very well.
Matt was yawning and all of a sudden the conversation stopped. That was Matt trying to. That's all right.
I'm like, next idea.
So there were not really any notable. Normally we hit notable guest stars. There weren't any notable guest stars. We got to introduce to a geological technician and Crewman Wilson, but Crewman Wilson comes back as what I understand. Mm-hmm. He's important enough to have his own entry in the Memory Alpha.
Okay, first of all, I want you to understand, important and Memory Alpha are not the same. If you go and look it up, there's an entry for the chicken sandwich that Kirk has in The Trouble with Tribbles.
What?
Yes, chicken sandwich has an entry in Memory Alpha because the Tribbles ate Kirk's chicken sandwich in that episode. So, yes, I will agree with you that he's notable and he'll be back. But, I'm just saying, Memory Alpha, they are thorough, those Memory Alpha.
Was it like a Monterey chicken sandwich or something?
No, it was a chicken sandwich and coffee. This is my chicken sandwich and coffee. It's a plate full of Tribbles, you see. That's later on. I'll come back for that show. That's about 23 episodes from now, I think.
Yeah, give or take. This is a long season, 30 episodes. Yeah. A little long for me.
That seems crazy.
Yeah.
But then I think
in the 60s they didn't take the same breaks that we did too.
Right.
I mean, your season started, your season ended, and it was basically September to May, and they'd try to go straight through where they could.
I'm thinking even in the 80s, like seasons have gotten shorter and shorter, and I'm going to start venting about seasons being so short if I don't stop.
We were missing.
I want more Vikings, damn it.
We were missing Uhura, which is unfortunate because I do like her when she's in the episodes.
Her voice is in there.
Yeah, she does. She does voiceover, but doesn't physically appear.
So we do get to see Janice Rand's giant hair, which is a notable guest star.
Like the thing is, okay, I'm just going to say something about the hair. Like, is it supposed to look like wigs? Because everybody's hair that is up that high, you can tell it's a wig. It's just, it's
the 60s.
It's plastic.
It's the 60s.
What?
In the 60s, the beehive hairdo was a thing, and I think this was supposed to take that beehive hairdo to futuristic lengths. But it makes her look like Beldar Conehead in some seasons.
I know, right?
Don't get me wrong. There are times when I really enjoy Janice Rand, but this haircut thing that she's doing in this episode, not particularly one of those times, really.
I like it when they go natural. It's much better.
So moving towards our next point is strange races, and there's only one that I'm aware of, and that's the unicorn dog, the Alpha 177 canine.
Correct.
He is a canine of Alpha 177.
And he is a test animal for that transportation. And literally he's a dog with some sort of head thing on, and then some sort of spine-looking thing
like
as well.
Antenna.
No, he's got like a whole little furry outfit on.
Yeah, he does have he's a dog furry. That's terrifying.
face is the only thing that's...
Oh, look at the time. Oh, what? Oh.
He does that species does come back in another episode, the Squire of Gothos. So we'll get to see that. That's probably that same dog.
I wonder if he gets to run around.
I bet it's Gene Roddenberry's dog.
They didn't let him run around very often.
No.
He just sat there.
Yeah, he did kind of. So that was our big alien
race.
So there were a couple of things I saw that stuck out, and I'll start with me because I like to start with me because I'm important.
No. Guests first.
Okay, Matthew, you may go ahead. You were mentioning two things that were really important. This was the first thing.
Yes, there are two important firsts in this episode, only in production order.
Okay.
This is important because we've already seen the Vulcan neck pinch in play. This episode is where it comes from. This is the first appearance chronologically in our universe of the neck pinch because, as originally scripted, Richard Matheson, who, by the way, wrote for Twilight Zone, good catch, had written Spock punching Bad Kirk in the face. And
really?
Yes, and Nimoy did not believe that Spock would resort to such brutal violence. And the compromise was that they created the Vulcan neck pinch so that Spock could have a less violent alternative to take him out. This is this script and the reason why it exists. So even though we saw it happen before, that was an episode that was created after this episode. First Vulcan neck pinch, chronologically speaking. And when the dog croaks, McCoy says for the first time, he's dead, Jim.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, we noticed that one. We were both kind of excited about that.
It's like, oh, yay! Now what are you what do you not like? Tell us.
Yeah, we're 6 episodes in. We haven't hit that one yet. That's one of our reoccurrings, and I keep going. All right, where is it? Is it this time? No, not yet.
Are you not a bricklayer? Are you not an analyst? Are you not the weekend sports reporter for the New York Times? What are you not? Tell us, Bones. We want to know.
What I did recognize or realize while watching Bones this episode, and I hadn't noticed before, he does talk a lot with his hands, and, oh God, I hate it when I forget stuff. The actor that's on the new Star Trek movies. Yes, Carl Urban. Why can't I ever remember his name? Anyway, Carl Urban very much imitates his hand gestures because he's standing there and Leonard or McCoy is standing there talking and he moves this gesture with his hands and I swear it looked exactly like Carl Urban. And then it's then that I realized that Carl Urban had was a really good study.
Well, and there's a lot of they look very much similar. I'm used to old McCoy from the movies, and not that DeForest Kelley is old in the movies, but he has aged and there are wrinkles, and this is a much younger but still mature McCoy, and Carl Urban has that same look to him. He's a little weathered but still robust, and it's a really good fit, physically.
Speaking of hands, something else happens in this episode that I caught when I was watching it a couple weeks ago.
He has Klingon blood on his hands.
That's a good one. No, this is related to Lieutenant Commander Montgomery Scott. Okay. Montgomery Scott, it is shown many times in this episode, has 10 fingers. The actor who played him, the late James Doohan, did not. Jimmy Doohan,
really?
Yeah, Jimmy Doohan actually lost a finger on, I believe, his right hand during World War II. There is a moment in this episode, a very rare moment, where Scotty reaches down to pick up that rotten dog, and you can actually see James Doohan's hand with his missing finger.
Wow.
Which you almost never can. And I don't know if it was the actor or the creators, but they went to great lengths, including shooting shots of him working on the transporter console with stunt hands, hands that are supposedly Scotty's, but clearly aren't. And I believe it's not until Star Trek II or Star Trek III that you get a clear view of the fact that Scotty is missing a finger. And I always thought, he's an engineer, he's working with antimatter, he's working with sharp things. Yeah. It's the year 2392.50325. I never thought it was a big deal, but somebody wanted to make it, to hide the fact that James Doohan only had 9 fingers.
I did not know that.
And I guess from the showmaker aspect, I could see this is the perfect future where people don't lose fingers, and
True.
that, like, I could grasp that concept. But at the same time, maybe it was James Doohan was, self-conscious about
Very
it.
self-conscious.
So
yeah. That's also interesting because it's during the same part of the episode where Kirk is missing his insignia for like 5 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
As the show opens, he has no insignia on his shirt.
Yeah, he's missing it on the chest.
On the planet until he beams up, Kirk's shirt has no Enterprise insignia.
Oh, wow.
Until he changes into that other green shirt with the...
That's how aware I am.
Yeah. Well, it's a little stuff you pick up.
Like, I saw the insignia on the second green shirt because it's down near his belly.
Yeah. Well, then you're probably a big fan of the hand flower we got to see in... I love that flower. That flower is fantastic. I really love that flower. Matt
can't stop talking about that flower.
We do get to see Spock's weird medical tricorder ray gun thing that he used in Naked Time.
What is that?
I don't know, but Scotty uses it on the geological technician Fisher.
That comes up.
That's a far too long.
So what is
name.
that? The early tricorder, and when did they change to the square thing?
I don't know. Well, Yeoman Rand is carrying a tricorder at all times.
Yep, the regular tricorder.
She's never used it yet
in the series.
No, Shirley, you're absolutely right. She's never used it, but it has always been on her hip.
So how do we know what that is?
We don't. Except it's her purse. It's her space purse.
Her space purse.
Where she keeps her space lipstick.
Yep.
Well,
and her space hairspray, because with a hair like that.
$50 in case of an emergency and she needs to catch a cab.
Yeah, that's what you do. Yeah. But we do get to see Spock's weird gun. I was excited about that. I did also like the Velcro phasers. The phasers were Velcroed to their uniforms, and I only could tell because Spock's like, Captain, your phaser, and you hear as he pulls it away from his belt. So it's good to know that Velcro will survive on as a viable use into the far future.
Velcro, the fabric of the future.
Yeah. And then the last one that I found really weird was we've yet to see shuttles. We've not seen a single shuttlecraft.
Yeah, because I was like, why don't they just send a shuttle down to get these guys?
You don't know. I'll tell you why.
Why?
Ask me why.
Why?
Why don't they send a shuttle down?
The shuttles don't exist yet.
But they're in the shuttle bay.
Right, but the reason the shuttles exist at all is because the model kit maker who came to them, and this is true, model kit maker came to them and said, we want to make Star Trek toy ships. And they're like, okay, we're going to do that. Can you help us pay for this shuttlecraft so that we can have this shuttlecraft set and then you can make the toys of it? And they said, sure.
Really?
What?
I mean,
yeah.
That's kind of awesome.
That's interesting. That's an interesting licensing deal there.
So
I like
shuttlecrafts are only around because of toy makers.
Because I think it may have been AMT, I'm thinking, but yeah, they wanted the license to make the toys. I actually had a couple of model kits when I was a kid. Star Trek model kits, and they broke real easy when you smashed them. But that's
I forget that the toy realm of the 60s and 70s is
Star Trek models. Not when I was not so much a kid.
Yeah, like you still have one in the bedroom not put together. I forget that the toy industry of like the 60s and 70s was this weird like cowboy Wild West land where you just did what you had to get by and you found new ways to make money. And
if the toys didn't look like the show, well, you just tell them that it's something they haven't seen yet. This is Spider-Man's service revolver. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Spider-Man's service revolver. Well, let's go ahead and get to our reoccurring items. Okay. Normally at this point we would talk about Bones and the things he says, but he finally says he's dead, Jim.
Right.
But we've still not gotten I'm a doctor, not something, anything.
In this episode, he could be a doctor, not a veterinarian.
This is true.
I know, right?
He could have been.
Why did that not come into play?
Or I'm a doctor, not a transport technician, because there was some questions about what the transportation did.
Right.
Like, I could have got behind that. Kirk does not get the lady, but there's some weird trying there.
For a really good reason.
Yeah.
And aren't you glad he didn't?
Oh, I know that this could have turned dark, and not in a fun.
I was kind of freaking out there a little bit.
Not in a fun Twilight Zone dark kind of way, like this is not right for TV kind of dark way.
It was really difficult. I remember seeing this for the first time when I was a kid, and being really freaked out, especially when she literally had to slash his face to get him to back off. That's some heavy stuff. I mean, even by 1966 standards, when gender politics was kind of a slap kiss sort of situation, and Hoss Cartwright had a new dead girlfriend every week, that's a little brutal for me. So
yeah. No, I'm with you. So
by the way, Hoss Cartwright has many dead girlfriends.
I have to look that up now.
Kirk has yet to get the lady in this, and I've always imagined Kirk as like walking into every room and all the ladies just fawn over him. But
he doesn't go in sideways, and he doesn't straddle a chair.
He mounts those chairs. Riker mounts them.
You have to step up because you're too tall, and it's a tiny chair.
Spock was logical and used he helps Kirk understand things a little bit better with the explanation of the two sides. So there was some classic Spock there, and I liked that. Okay,
what I didn't like about it was even though this episode was trying to say, okay, we have to like embrace all of this stuff about ourselves, it was still telling men to suck it up. I was like, what? Why is Spock telling him that? And I'm like,
well,
and I understand for the time, and I understand like even for the level of leadership and situation, but I think that's what has set leadership up to fail, coming forward to our time. Ooh. They can't be perfect. Nobody's perfect.
But and in response to that, the show says a couple of things. One, very much even in its gender politics, Kirk comes out and said evil Kirk, but still Kirk comes out and says you're too beautiful to ignore, too much woman, which there's some connotation there.
You didn't know this was getting political, did you?
Well, but then. And to touch on that concept of perfection, Spock tells Kirk that he can't afford the luxury of being anything less than perfect as the captain.
And that's just a leadership for failure.
Yeah, well, and then Kirk says no. Like, he has to let the crew know something. Right. He has to let them know that something is going on so that they can prepare themselves for that.
Yeah. That's the point I was trying to make. Yeah. Thank you.
Hey, you did a good job. I was hoping.
I do find it a little bit questionable in terms of Spock's characterization. And I'm going to try and be charitable here, his taunting and leering, which is about the nicest thing you can say, about his remarks to Janice at the end of the episode.
Yeah, there was some,
There's definitely some overtones there that felt like Spock still hadn't quite ironed out all of the no emotions part for me.
Well, and if, Spock's all about the ladies, I didn't realize this because Uhura was all over him in Charlie X.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then again in Charlie X she sings to him, and then another episode she comes and sits next to the chair while he's sitting in the captain's chair, and she's like, "So I'm hot, right?" And he's like, "Yeah, I guess." But Spock in this is just phenomenal so far. I mean, he's not quite right. I think I keep looking at the characters from the movie's perspective, where they've had 30 years to get these characters down, and they understand. And they've had years of fans telling him, well, actually, in this episode,
And remember, when you say Season 1, Episode 5, one of those episodes was a pilot, which was made well in advance. This is basically the 4th episode of the show. It was shot as the 2nd or 3rd episode of the show. You're going to have some bobbles in there. You're going to have some stuff that doesn't quite come off, especially stuff, related to these premises that are currently works in progress.
Absolutely. I'm liking watching the show grow. Engineering did not look as terrible as it did in the Naked Time, because it looked like they just painted stuff on the walls and that was the controls. It looked horrendous.
You know why it looked like that?
Because they painted stuff on the walls.
They put some forced perspective in there and tried to make it look more impressive, which I thought was nice.
Yeah. The engines, like the look back at the engines where you're just looking down this tunnel,
right.
and it's clearly painted. That's fine, but like the controls in the Naked Time were literally like, oh, look at these controls. Don't touch them though, because none of them will move.
It looked like the preschooler toys,
yeah.
The blocks and stuff that you put together.
Yeah. We did not have any actual crew member deaths in this one.
Unless you count Ensign Dog.
Well, yes, Ensign Alpha 177 K9, he's out for the count, but no red shirt deaths, no blue shirt deaths, no green shirt, gold shirt deaths.
You kill a dog, that's 9 lives right there.
That's true. No, that's cat.
I don't know then. What did they say about dogs? The dog years are 7 years, so it's 7 divided by 3, and then in Celsius, because it's the future, that's 3.5 deaths.
Yeah. That's good math.
Whoa.
That's good. That's like 3 + 3 = 4. That's Elven math.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm not good at the math.
And then our last recurring item is her doing something other than answering the phone, but we actually
she did this
don't
time.
get to see her even answer the phone. She just lets the captain know that she's already answered the phone.
She made a phone call.
Yeah. Like,
Overhead paging.
Yeah.
Overhead paging.
Dr. Spock, please return to the...
Oh, sorry. That's a different guy.
No, you're fine. No, you're fine. You keep going. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see much of that, but it was enjoyable still. So Matthew, what like out of 5, give us a little bit of synopsis what you thought of the episode, and then out of 5 stars where you would put it.
The thing about this episode, and I try to keep this in mind, is you have to bear in mind a little bit of context. As one of the first shows made, as a show where they're still getting their feet underneath them, it's remarkably put together. I mean, if you look at the first entire season of The Next Generation, you can't go an episode without, the space equivalent of some schmuck in a hat wants 50 cents. You've got a problem in nearly every episode in terms of continuity. So it's amazing to me that they had their feet under them this strongly, to where you have that Captain Kirk as the central figure, Spock as the logical guy, you got McCoy doing the thing. I really am and continue to be bothered by the Janus sequence, but I don't excuse it, I don't write it off, but I take it as being the late 1960s, and the fact that they are playing this up as this is the thing that makes us know that he's the bad guy. Mm-hmm. Even though I'm not happy with how they show us that he's the bad guy, the fact that they're using it as that level of this is probably the ultimate bad thing he can do, just walking off the transporter pad, I can live with that. I think it's a solid episode. I'd say 4 slices of meatloaf. That's a different show. 4 out of 5 for me. This is a good, solid one. It's got some nice moments to it. The dialogue doesn't fall apart. There's enough Richard Matheson in it that it still has kind of what I refer to as sort of a story elegance. If you actually read Matheson's printed work, he will edit and chop to where his stories are as short and succinct as possible. And I feel like that really comes through, even with 15 or 20 other guys rewriting the script, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Because it's television. And it's one of the episodes where you don't want to slap Grace Lee Whitney every moment she's on screen as Janice Rand. So that in and of itself buys them a half a star. So it's definitely a 4 out of 5 affair for me. This is a really solid early episode.
I think you ruined both Shirley and I, and all we can think about is meatloaf.
Yeah, meatloaf.
I'm like going, meatloaf.
On one of my other shows, we use the meatloaf scale because A, it's entertaining, and B, we're idiots.
I like the meatloaf scale.
Go listen to all of our shows, and when you find out which one it is, write it on a piece of paper, crumple it up, throw it over your left shoulder, and bark like a dog.
Yep. There's a special prize.
Okay, I think...
So Shirley,
yes.
what did you think?
Now, I mean, how do you follow that up? Because I have nothing to say about Richard Matheson. No, I felt like in the beginning, Kirk was like Matthew said. I mean, they're just getting their feet under them, and I felt like the lines weren't delivered very well to match what the emotion of some of the scenes were supposed to be.
I'm Captain Kirk! I'm Captain Kirk! I'm Captain Kirk!
No, by the...
Smash!
Well, that a little bit. But by the end, where the emotion and he's confronting himself, it felt very, like I was pulled into the story. It felt very real, like you're having that conflict within yourself type of thing going on. And he just, it felt like, I think part of himself felt like he had to like put a lid on that part of himself, which, he wanted to let out a little more often or whatever. Anyway, but that's what I felt like. This is going to be, I don't know, 2.5, 3 stars for me.
Okay.
Because of script delivery.
Okay. Personally, I enjoyed it, but I haven't watched one I didn't enjoy. Even The Cage, that's weird compared to these.
I love The Cage.
I still enjoyed.
I know.
And we have the Menagerie coming up where we get to revisit that, so that'll be interesting. I don't know how I feel about that.
It's better in the second run through, to be honest.
Oh, is it really? Okay.
Yeah.
So this was fun. It was enjoyable. Other than the small hiccups that I feel like are kind of like key to being this season and this series of Star Trek, like the opening scene, the landscape is weird. It's just weird. And it's clearly off. And a couple of things like the dog is clearly in a freaking suit. It's not the best
really
alien.
Tell the dog is in a suit.
You can. There's a line around its face where its face is poking through. There's a few things here and there. That Saurian brandy, I want that glass bottle. That looked awesome.
We could probably find a craft like that.
I know. I bet you I could go on a Star Trek site right now and find one where they're selling them. But there's some weird things here and there. But I think that's part of the charm too, because they were seriously putting effort and time into making this a good show, and it didn't always work exactly the way they wanted to, but they were putting the effort there. And where some of the background and some of the costuming and stuff loses itself, the writing does come through. And I think I get what you're saying, but at the beginning the writing was a little rough for some of the script, or at least the delivery was. But they're telling a story that has a moral and has a deeper implication than just your normal Lost in Space kind of deal. Mm-hmm. This is serious, and they're making you think. They want you to think at the end of this. So having said all that, I would give this like a 3. I want to stay kind of in the middle, a little bit better than just average. But so far, I don't think that I don't think, unless it gets bad, and I know it's going to get bad. I know it's going to get really bad.
It's not going to get bad.
I hear season 3 of the original series is just terrible.
I'll tell you, the worst episode of the show is episode 56. And even at its worst, it's still not horrific.
Okay.
I mean, it's not like, okay, it's bad. I'll grant you, it's a bad episode, but it's not like train wreck bad. It's not like I don't know. It's not like Big Show wrestles the Great Khali bad. It's not like it's not like Rob Liefeld's Youngblood #1 flip book bad. It's it's in
so it's not Rob Liefeld feet bad.
Oh no, there are no Rob Liefeld feet. What are you, nuts? The episode in question, Spock's Brain, for those of you who don't speak nerd, is, it's it's dumb, but it's dumb for Star Trek. So even when it gets dumb in a context to where, okay, the space hippies in episode 58 aren't great, but what are you going to do?
Yeah.
These things happen.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Spock's Brain,
thanks for not inviting me for that episode, by the way.
well, we want to take a minute to thank 5 Year Mission, who's currently doing an album called Spock's Brain. I don't know if you're familiar with 5 Year Mission, Matthew. Are you?
No.
They are a Star Trek band. Their first 3 albums are year 1, 2, and 3 because they sing songs about the episodes. They have provided us with the intro and outro, or they've given us the rights to use their music for the intro and outro for our show. They're currently working on Spock's Brain. You should definitely check them out. They're totally worth listening to. They're fun and enjoyable. And Matthew, I really think that you might enjoy them. Just a general FYI. And by the time this episode comes out, Spock's Brain will have been out for probably a few months.
6 to 8 months.
Yeah. So, because we're talking to you from the future. Or the past.
Hello, future people.
So, you're coming back on for Trouble with Tribbles?
Sure.
Oh, don't invite him for that without me checking hard.
I will physically fight all of your guests in a steel cage.
Oh,
I have the power of
I will
Grayskull.
arrange this. I will arrange this.
You know
so
what?
that's,
I'll tell you what.
If
you can't do that one, anything with Harry Mudd, the Paradise Syndrome with Big War Chief Kirok, and Plato's Stepchildren with the telekinetic Miguelito Loveless. Any of those, fine by me.
Yeah, our artist and
we can bump him.
My cousin has claimed Trouble the Tribbles, but he is a huge Critical Hit fan, and if I say...
Exactly.
If I say Matthew Peterson wants to bump you off your episode, he might step down as long as he can listen in. So, yeah, we'll figure out where we can get you back in. We'll definitely be having you back.
If that doesn't work, also Devil in the Dark is an absolute go for me. I'll talk to you about Janos Prohaska. Yeah.
That is a mouthful of a name.
It is.
I like it.
Sounds amazing.
All right.
I want one.
So, Matthew, where can we find you on the interwebs?
Well, if you hang around in the back rooms and the dark side alleys of the Antares, don't look for me on Facebook. I don't have any fun there. On Twitter, at Mighty King Cobra, doing ridiculous stuff. As long as you're cool with superheroes, pretty girls, and talk about nothing, and the occasional complaint about call center job, it's great. Also, www.majorspoilers.com for all of your nerdery needs, neatery nerds, if you see what I'm picking up there.
And you throw out some top 10 lists on Twitter occasionally.
Not top 10, my friends. Oh, no, because I do not try and rank things by volume. Because if I say these are the top 10, people will say, what about Deadpool? And I don't want to have that argument. No, it's just 10 things, but they're 10 important things.
Right on.
Right.
Do you remember what the last one of those you did was?
The one I did today, I did 10 Ben 10 characters about which I know nothing but who seem cool. And then to make it up to my friend Melanie, who doesn't care for Man of Action cartoons, I did 10 costumes that only George Perez can draw.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So I highly suggest Major Spoilers if you're into comic book and pop culture. Top 5 is really just nerds talking about nerdy things and what they enjoy. That one is, to me, a lot more universal than a lot of your other shows.
I would agree. Top 5 is a good place to come in if you don't know whether you like us or not.
Oh, yeah.
Zach on Film as well has a lot of stuff that, is of a really broad focus because it's about movies and whether movies are good or not good.
Yeah, and actually, Zach on Film, I watched Moulin Rouge probably 3 or 4 times with Shirley. Loves it, and I did not like it at all. I listened to Zach on Film.
Not a Moulin Rouge fan.
I listened to Zach on Film, went back and watched it again, and while I can't say it's my favorite movie, and it's not something I'll pop in at any time,
She'll fall asleep.
I have a great deal of a more appreciation for it, and that helped a lot. That helped me get there.
And that's what we're here for, maintaining the peace and teaching you the wonder of Baz Luhrmann.
See, I told him.
The thing about Baz Luhrmann, people badmouth him, but everything he's made has some sort of effect on me. Even if it's something that I'm like, oh my God, this is nauseating. But I loved his Romeo and Juliet. I loved his, I'm getting way off topic. What's that last one that he did that was wonderful?
What's that, Gatsby?
Gatsby
yes.
and the...
My daughter loves Gatsby. She's 11, and she's like, can we watch Gatsby? Sure.
Wow, okay. Maybe we should check out Gatsby. I want to go back and watch Romeo plus Juliet.
That's good. Romeo plus Juliet has 3 things that are really awesome. Has John Leguizamo as Tybalt, which is pretty impressive. It has a sort of modernized Shakespeare, and it has John Leguizamo as Tybalt. There's also a Mercutio. That's wonderful too.
Does Baz have a thing for John?
I don't know.
Because
he's one of his regulars.
He's oh my gosh, he's the artist in Moulin Rouge.
Toulouse. It's Akira Kurosawa to Toshu Mifune.
It's Tim Burton to Johnny Depp and Helena Bonham Carter. It's Gene Roddenberry to that one lady.
His wife.
Barrett?
Oh, Majel Barrett, thank you. Well, and Majel Barrett wasn't his wife when he started.
This is true.
They're like, lose the girl or lose the Vulcan, and he's like, okay, I'll keep the Vulcan and marry the girl. That's what he always.
There you go.
That's fair.
Yeah.
So we can find
the
you
way
over...
around could have been difficult for all involved.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We will find you over at Twitter, and we can catch you over at Major Spoilers. Anything else you want to plug real quick? Anything else great going on in the world of the Mighty King Cobra?
I think I'm going to Nerdtacular 2015 this fall.
So if it weren't weekend at Gen Con and we didn't live in the town that Gen Con is in, we would be there.
Oh, I see. I see how it is. Gen Con. We're going to go to Gen Con, Bluto.
I'm still waiting for you to come out here.
Yeah,
Where's out there?
Indianapolis,
Indiana.
Yeah.
The home of all of the characters from One Day at a Time.
Also, Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place.
And Gen Con.
Oh, I haven't seen that.
and the Future Farmers of America National. I mean, you live in Kansas. You're clearly a farmer, right?
Hey! Put that You're good.
All right. Well, that'll wrap us up, I think, and that will do us.
And that'll do us tonight for
There Are Four Lights.
Remember, you can email us at therearefourlightspodcast@gmail.com or find us on Facebook at facebook.com/nerdsdomain, on Twitter at nerdsdomain, or over at our site, nerdsdom.com. Be sure to sign up for the newsletter while you're there. You can head over to iTunes and give us a 5-star rating. A big thanks to 5 Year Mission for their music. You can find them at 5yearmission.net. Don't forget you can support us at patreon.com/nerdsdomain. And check out our shirts at /loot.